We're gonna keep doing I've done all the basic tutorials. I have not done all of the intermediates though. So we're gonna keep doing this. Keep going at it. In this part, we're going to walk through some of the concepts of the Victoria 2 military system that might be familiar to the returning Victoria player, but may be new to others. We shall start by entering the military screen. Please click military. This is the military view. From here, you can keep an eye on your complete military forces and military leaders, as well as recruit new forces and mobilize your nation for war. We will start by looking at how armies are recruited in Victoria 2. Go ahead and click the Build Army button. Okay. Manpower in Victoria 2 is rather different from other Paradox titles. In Victoria, all troops are recruited from the part of your population that are employed as soldiers, the soldier pops. To build an army, you must have enough soldiers in your population to fill the ranks of the new unit. In the list, you can see all the units you can currently recruit. If you need more than this, you must encourage more people to become soldiers by increasing the military budget in the budget screen. Go ahead and click the Wallonian Armed Infantry. Which one? There's two of them. Pick one, I guess. The unit you just clicked is called a Wallonian Infantry. This tells us that it is a regular infantry unit recruited from Wallonian soldiers. Also note that the name Brussels appears below the name of the unit. This means that the soldiers live in the Brussels province. Now notice the icons and numbers left of the unit name. These are the goods needed to buy a unit. This particular unit requires 20 small arms and 20 canned food. These will either be drawn from your stockpile or, if there's not enough available there, bought from the world market. The unit we wanted to build is now in the build queue on the right side of the screen, and we could click it to cancel our construction, but for now we are happy with it. Go ahead and click the close button to continue. Generals and admirals. To win battles, your units must be properly led. To recruit generals for armies or admirals for navies, we need leadership points. Leadership points are generated by our population's officers, the officer pops. If you need more generals, you must increase your military budget in the budget screen, just as when you need soldiers. The difference being that generals are recruited from the poor strata. The soldiers are recruited from the poor strata, while officers are recruited from the rich strata. Notice the number on the Create General button. This is the number of generals you currently have points for. Go ahead and click the button. 3. Nice. We now have received our first general, Albert Allard, War College Aggressive. As you can see, he has 2 traits. These define his good and bad sides. By hovering your mouse over them, you can see what they do for your armies. Regardless of bad traits, having no leader is always worse than having one. Okay. Attack +2. Not bad. You can also see which army your leader is currently commanding. Our new general is, of course, unassigned. It is possible to auto-assign units and also auto-recruit leaders by leaving the appropriate box checked. For now, we are manually going to assign our general. Go ahead and select the division in SPA. To assign your leader, click the text in the unit labeled, in the view labeled No Leader. Then select your general in the list that appears. No leader. Oh, that one. Okay, so we're going to go to intermediary production. In this part of the tutorial, we will cover the basic concepts of production in Victoria 2. These concepts should be familiar to the returning Victoria players. We're going to start by talking about the most basic resource producer, the RGO. Go ahead and click the province of Brussels to open the province view. Certain trade goods are produced by resource gathering operations, the RGOs. These are basically farms and mines. In the center of the province view, you can see the data on the RGO of Brussels, a sulfur mine. Where is it? That. The output, the icons show us that this RGO produced sulfur. The number next to it is how many units are produced. By hovering over the output, you can see which factors influence this. Huh. Okay. Income. All that is produced by an RGO is put on the market. If the goods get sold, the RGO generates income. This income is used to pay the workers as well as the aristocrats that own the RGO. Employees. An RGO employs workers to produce its output. Farmers work farms and laborers work mines. The more workers you have, the more you produce. However, the amount of workers that can be employed are capped. You cannot directly influence how much your RGOs produce. You can, however, invent new technology that makes them more efficient, build railways, or use taxation and reforms to make the job of farming or mining more or less attractive. You can hover your mouse over the icons to get more data. When you are done, click the production button in the top bar. Sure. Factories are buildings built in states. In this view, you can see the factories currently operating in your country. It's a steel factory, an ammo factory, and a small arms factory. Fabric, canned food, and cement. Alright. Inputs. Factories require inputs to produce their outputs. These inputs are bought off the world market. Stuff. Maintenance. In addition to the regular inputs, factories also need cement to maintain their production. If a factory can't get all of the cement it needs, its production will be reduced. If your factories are competing for the same resources, you can choose to prioritize one factory. It seems that iron is required by several of our factories. Go ahead and increase the priority of the steel factory to make sure they have priority. How factories are built depends on your country's present economic policy. Under a laissez-faire economy, for example, all of your factories are built by your capitalists. In the current Belgian system, however, both the government and the capitalists can build factories. Building more factories is a good way to boost the country's economy. Go ahead and click the Build Factory button for Vlaanderen. In this screen, you can see all the factories that can be built. If you click the regular closed factory in the menu, you can see which kinds of inputs are produced. Since we already have a fabric factory in our country, building a factory that takes fabric as an input could improve our local economy. So look for this. Regular clothes. Below, you can see what the factory will cost to produce. To build a factory, you need to provide input goods. If you don't have these when you click build, they will automatically be bought off the world market. There is also an input cost. This is the cost of the input goods and the factory needs for its first few days of production. In this screen, you can also see how many unemployed workers are available. If there aren't any, you can still build a factory. Other types of workers will start becoming factory workers. Good indicators on which factory to build are the supply and demand of goods, and especially if there is a local supply of inputs and demand for the outputs. For now, let's build a regular closed factory. Click Build to start construction. You don't have to build new factories to increase your production. You can also upgrade your factories. Expanding a factory can also be done by either the capitalist or the player, depending on the political system. The cost of upgrading a factory is similar to building one and can be seen when hovering over the Upgrade Factory button. Let's upgrade our steel factory. Press the upgrade button for the steel factory. Factory upgrade, yep. Everything a factory produces is put up on the world market. The factory then gets paid depending on the current price and what gets sold. The factory then stores the amount needed to buy input goods for the next day. The difference is profit. The profit is then used to pay the workers, craftsmen and clerks, and owners, capitalists. The player do not receive money directly from the factory's profits, but rather through taxing the population and putting tariffs on goods. Make sure you keep an eye on the profitability of your factories. Unprofitable factories will fire workers and create unemployment. Intermediary budget. In this part, we will go through some of the budget concepts of Victoria 2 game that sets the game apart from other Paradox games. First, we need to open the budget screen to do it. Budget. Taxes in Victoria 2 are collected based on the population's income. Each time your people receive an income, you get a share. Your population is divided into strata. These are poor strata, the workers and peasants; middle strata, the middle class, artisans, clergy, and other educated people; rich strata, the upper class, aristocrats, and capitalists. The pie charts next to each strata shows how the population of this strata are doing. Are they getting their everyday needs. If you see a lot of red, you can try to help the situation by lowering taxes. You can also hover your mouse over specific population icons to see how that particular group is doing. Click Next to continue. Tariffs are a special tax or subsidy on international trade. If you draw the tariff slider to the right of center, you will increase the cost of goods your population and factories buy outside your internal market. If you draw it left of center, you will instead subsidize the same kind of trades. Tariffs have the dual functionality of providing income as well as favoring domestic producers over foreign producers. Basic expense types. Let's take a look at the basic expense types and what they do. Industrial subsidies. This is an expenditure that funds factories that do not show a profit. This is activated from the production screen. National stockpile. This is the daily cost for trades set in the trade screen. Just below you see two numbers. This is the value of goods used to maintain your military and your overseas possession. These values only indirectly affect the national stockpile expense, since you need to buy the goods used up. These can either be set manually or automatic when you have, for example, built a factory or have an army that needs supplies. Education. This money goes to paying your clergy, which educates your people, and also lowers the consciousness, of your population. The higher the slider is set, and the more attractive becoming a clergyman becomes. Administration. This money goes to pay your bureaucrats. Bureaucrats run your social reforms and collect your taxes. The more bureaucrats you have in a state, the more efficient your tax collection becomes. You can see your average administrative efficiency above the slider. Social spending. This goes to financing social reforms like unemployment, subsidies, and pensions. Military spending. This goes to the salary of your soldiers and officers. All of these expenses go directly to different kinds of citizens. If you pay too little, people might start looking for new jobs. And if you were to pay more, you will get other people promoting to the strata, thus increasing their costs. It will be up to you to balance your spending and get the optimal number of employees in each sector. Aye. Diplomatic balance. Money can also enter and leave your government budget through international relations. These can include war subsidies that we either pay or receive from our friends, or they can be war reparations. I will take intermediary technology next. In this part we will explain some of the concepts concerning how research is done and how it affects your nation. Let's start by again entering the technology screen by clicking the technology button in the top bar. Each technology you research has a research point cost. This is the amount of research points you must generate before technology is finished. If you click any technology, you can see this cost in the top part of the information window. Research points are generated by your population, specifically by your clergymen and clerks. How many research points they generate is affected by how literate they are. In addition, research points are affected by the plurality of your country, as well as technological progress. Take a moment and hover your mouse over the technology button in the top bar and find out how many research points Belgium generates. Next up, we shall talk about the effects of technology. Click the Strategic Mobility Tech under the Army tab. Inventing a technology has two kinds of effects, the immediate effect and inventions. If you take a look at the information screen, you can see that the strategic mobility affects fort level, army reconnaissance, and army supply consumption. These effects will be immediate when the technology is researched. Inventions. Notice the light bulbs next to the technology. These represents inventions. If you hover your mouse over them, you can see their effects. The effects of the inventions are not immediate, rather there is a chance that they might trigger randomly after you have researched their technology. The color of the light bulb tells you if a technology is triggered yet. Gray means it can't trigger, yellow means it may trigger, and green means it has already happened. Take a moment to check out which inventions different technologies have. strategic mobility, field fortifications, army's defense +1, railroad transport, mobilization size +1, signal detachments, organization +2.5, consumption -5%. Not bad. Muzzle-loaded rifles, iron muzzle-loaded artillery, military plans, telegraph coordination, mobilization timetables, personnel category tables, professionalism, nice. Military tactics +100%, nice. Consumption +20%, Heck. Let's see. Next. Intermediary politics. Sure. Politics. This chapter will explain how some of the basic concepts of the Victorian political system. Start by clicking the politics in the top bar. Here you can see which party rules Belgium. It is currently the Katholieke Partij. The policies they support have a major impact on how your country behaves and which politics or which policies you can enact. Beneath the name of the party, you can see the current policies. For example, the Nationalists practices state capitalism. One of the effects of this is that you can build factories manually, while under the other systems only capitalists can build factories. Another important effect of policies is that they put limits on the budget slider. The state capitalist party will, for example, not accept taxes under a certain level. To learn more about governments, click Next. Government form. If you don't like the current ruling party, the current government form has a major impact on your ability to do anything about this. The government also impacts which kind of ideologies are permitted to hold power. Belgium's current government form, for example, is HM's government. Under this system there are elections, but the player may choose to overrule the results of these in favor of another party, at the cost of an increase in militancy among the party's supporters. Government form is a function of political reforms enacted, and the player can never change government form directly. For example, no democratic form of government can persist if the voting rights have been abolished. Okay. Elections. Under certain government forms, the ruling party is chosen through elections. For example, under an HM's government or under a democracy. Under democratic governments, elections must be held at certain intervals, but it is, however, possible to start them early by clicking the Hold Elections button. Once the election is started, an election campaign will kick off, during which events such as scandals and rousing speeches may alter its outcome. At the end of the campaign, the voters decide which party should rule based on what issues they consider important. Note that the voters are not necessarily the people as a whole in Belgium. For example, only the wealthy have the vote, so poor people can't vote. Political reforms affect how your country's political system works and how your people behave politically. The vote franchise and the voting system, for example, affect who gets to vote and how the votes are counted, while press rights affect how your literate population's politics change. The reason to enact political reforms are usually that your people demand it, but it can also be because you want greater freedom in deciding the course of your country. Now let's move on to social reforms. Social reforms affect the well-being of your population. Some social reforms affect the productivity of industry, like max work hours, while others channel money from the state to certain segments of the population. Some social reforms can be very beneficial. Just be aware that managing your reforms will increase the cost of your bureaucracy. In the lower right corner of the politics screen, you will find your political decisions. These are important choices that you can make for your country, such as changing the academic establishment, building the Panama Canal, or unifying Germany under your rule. If you hover your mouse over the question mark, you can see which prerequisites exist for taking the decisions, and if you hover it over the tick, you can see the effects it has. If the tick is grayed out, you cannot take the decision because you don't fulfill the prereq. Okay. So in order to do military-industrial complex, you have to have a prestige of at least 45 and have a higher military score than 100. Finally, there is the ultimate consequence of ignoring the plight of your people, the rebel factions. As militancy rises in your population, your people will consider joining a rebel faction. If they do this, or if they do, this will be displayed in this screen. A rebel faction has dissatisfied people with a similar cause as their members. As we can see, Belgium houses a reactionary faction. To the right of its name, you can see 3 values. These are membership count, the number of people who support it; organization, a percentage that represents the internal strength of the faction. It's increased if the dissatisfied people make a lot of money; revolt, this is the risk of a general uprising of the faction. Should a faction rise in revolt, a number of rebel armies will spawn. The strength of these will be decided based on the membership count and organization. Just beware, if a single pop's militancy gets too high, it will rise, with or without the support of its faction, and this might in turn increase the risk of a general rising. To get rid of a faction, you must either defeat it in battle or address the concerns of your militant pops. To learn more about what different pops want, you must check the population screen. Population A. In this part, we will talk a little about what a pop is and what makes them tick. Go ahead and click the population button at the top of the bar. The pop. The most basic unit of population in Victoria 2 is the pop. A pop is a number of people in the same province that share occupation, culture, and religion. Each pop has a number of attributes, which we shall now take a look at. Hey, Kenshaw, how are you? I hope my sound sounds better. I worked on it pretty much all day. Let's see, click the pop icon. This works. For any of your pop. Oh, dark. Here you get more details about these representatives of the people. Let's go over some of the basic attributes. Nationality represents the pop's language and culture. Some nations do not tolerate minorities, which can lead to friction. Militancy, how angry the pop is. Consciousness, how aware the pop is of the world around it and its best interests. Literacy, how literate the pop is. This affects, among other things, how many research points are generated, how effective an artisan the pop is, and how it behaves politically. Religion, which religion a pop has. May cause friction if the country has a different religion. Yeah, I decided to do tutorials. Unemployed tells us how a large part of the pop is unemployed. Needs fulfillment. How much of the pop's needs for goods are fulfilled. Not being able to fulfill certain categories have different effect. No luxury needs and the pop could be happier. No life needs mean starvation. Militancy and consciousness. Let's say a few words about the most important attributes. Militancy and consciousness. Militancy. Various things can make a pop angry, but chief among them is a pop not getting his life needs fulfilled. The angrier the pop gets, the higher the risk of revolt. Once the pop gets angry enough, it will join a rebel faction, and it will start using its resources to overthrow the state and eventually rise up and spawn a rebel army. Consciousness. The primary gameplay effect of consciousness, or con, is to drive reform. As the game and the nations develop, con will increase, and with it pops will start to demand reform. If pops get their desired reforms, con will conversely decrease somewhat. Another important effect of increased con is that pops start to demand bigger needs. This has the effect that a rich dictatorship can avoid reforms by making their people richer. Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm trying to... This video is actually going to end up probably going on my YouTube. So, I'm just doing the tutorials and I'm just going to slice it up. Cash. Finally, you will notice that a pop has cash. The pop will receive cash from whatever it does for a living, be it farming or working in a factory. This money will then be used to buy needs. If money is left over, the pop may invest this in the national bank, which is then available for lending to countries. Trade. In this section, we will talk about some of the underlying concepts of trade in Victoria 2. Open the trade screen by clicking Trade. In Victoria 2, everything that is produced is put up on the world market. Each day, all pops, factories, and governments try to buy the things they need for their survival or their businesses. And those who want goods, those goods must first buy them off the market. The prices are set globally. Each day on the world market is a function of supply and demand. The current supply and demand will set a target price, which the actual price will gradually close in on. Should you keep an eye on the development of prices on goods that are important to you? Are small arms going up? Perhaps it is time to build a new factory. The arrow next to the price indicates whether the prices are rising, green, or remaining steady, yellow, or falling, red. The image below illustrates the world market entry for Clipper convoys. The icons in the bottom row indicate whether we are currently selling or buying the good and whether trading is currently set to AI automation or not. The government, the player, or the AI can buy and sell on the market in two ways, either by setting trade orders or by automatic trades generated through other actions in the game. Click the icon for Clipper convoys to see an automatic trade. Okay, that's what that looks like. Some trades can be managed automatically. These trades include goods needed to maintain your navies, armies, and overseas possessions, as well as to build buildings. Notice that the automatic checkbox is checked. This means that the trade is automated. Let's try to do it manually. Go ahead and uncheck it. Manual trades can be useful if you want to build stockpiles or manage the rate at which goods are bought. To manually set a trade order, pull the slider to the desired value. This means that if you have more goods than you set the slider at, you will sell it. Click the Confirm Trade to confirm your trade. The market has two parts, the domestic market and the world market. The common market is everything that is produced in your country, as well as the countries in your sphere of influence. The world market is everything not sold on the common market. When a buyer wants to buy something, he first tries to buy from the common market, and if his needs cannot be fulfilled this way, he imports from the world market. This way you can build your local economy by making sure that everything needed in your country is also produced by your country. Go ahead and click Next. Intermediary diplomacy. In this section we will talk a little about ranking and the diplomatic interface. Go ahead and click. In Victoria 2, ranking is very important. Climbing in rank can give you advantages and respect in the world. There are three types of ranks that are weighted together. Prestige is gained through improving your country's status. Win wars, build colonies, or develop your culture. Prestige is extremely important as it decides the order among the countries when they buy on the world market. So if you have the highest prestige, your population gets to buy before everyone else. Industrial score. This is gained by improving your industry. Build factories and railway. Military. Based on the size of your military, large warships give you the highest score. Just be aware that once a new ship type enters the scene, your old ones will be close to worthless. All these values are then weighted together to decide your place in the sun. Let's see where we stand. Sort the country list by rank by clicking the pound sign above the country list. As you can see, the most important country in the world is the United Kingdom. Try to find our native Belgium. As you can see, we are not that high up on the list. We're 9th. Country flag. Country name and flag. Priority. Here you can set the priority which you assign to the countries under your influence. Only great powers can do this against non-great powers. Sadly, our score is not high enough. Influenced by the great powers. So there looks like there's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 8 great powers. Here you can see how much influence each of the great powers have in other countries. Sphere of influence. Here we can see if a country is in a sphere of influence of another country. Scoring. In order, the prestige rank, the industrial rank, the military rank, and the total rank. 6. The current opinion they hold of you. All non-great powers have the current opinion of great powers. This opinion ranges from hostile to in sphere and decides how receptive the country is to a great power. If the country is friendly and the great power has enough influence, there may there, it can choose to put the minor country into its sphere of influence. Relation. Your current relationship with the country. You can increase this value to make them like you more. However, the value will always go towards 0 in the long run. Click the nation of Luxembourg. Luxembourg. Here you can see the country information about Luxembourg. At the top you can see that they're a civilized nation and an absolute monarchy, and that they are ruled by the conservative fraction. Here you will find their rank and scoring. Score 1, prestige 57, yikes, yeah, they kind of suck. Total 1. Then the information about the population and their accepted culture. North German and French. About 44,000 people. Here you can see how much influence each great power has in Luxembourg. This is very important once you yourself become a great power. So, yeah, neutral, neutral, neutral. That's Russia, Austria, France, the UK, and Prussia. Yep. Now find the United Kingdom in the list and check them. As you can see, the United Kingdom is a great power, the greatest in fact. Their information is mostly similar, except instead of influence from other countries, you can see which nations are in their sphere or close to it. When you are a great power, it is good to check who your competitor is trying to control. That's the end of that. So, yep, I did. Okay, that's all for the intermediary. So I'm going to return to the tutorial. I've done all the mediums. See, yeah.